Welcome to the Non-Essential Podcast. I'm Steve Gibson, still.
I'm Ben Matlock, still.
I like that because that makes sense out of context as it does in context.
Week to week, it's amazing. I haven't evolved into my true form.
Yes.
To Benelux.
Yes. I like that that's where your evolved form goes, as Benelux.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're getting ready to attack Tokyo.
Well, it's kind of like how Bulbasaur evolves into, like, diabetes in Pokemon. It's like, that's what Benelux is. It's just a really fat, gross version of myself with, like, boils and shit. It's like, finally, I've reached my peak.
If that's how evolution works, I'm surprised people don't keep coming up to me like, "Oh, congratulations on your! Oh, you're still evolving. You're not done yet. Wow.
Yeah,
good for you."
What that's probably one of the best backhanded compliments you could give somebody. It's like, wow, you look so evolved. It's like you got a fucking third arm coming out of your back.
Yeah. I like those comments. We've all gotten them over the course of our life, or I assume I have, where you get them and at first you're just like kind of like thanks, and then you're like thinking about it like, wait, is that a compliment? It's because there's people out there that just say weird fucking things, and I don't think they're actually meant to be like a compliment or a backhanded compliment. They're weird ass people.
They just say shit and they start shit.
And it just like burrows into your brain for a while, and you're just like, what the fuck did that even mean?
Which is, you know what? It's funny you say that because it's actually a really good segue for what we're going to talk about today.
How about that?
If you haven't listened to the Non-Essential Podcast before, what we do is tell each other stories. They can be about anything. And, maybe we'll do our best. Maybe we'll phone it in. I kind of phoned it in this week.
I like that you say it's either or. I like to think that doing my best is phoning it in. Like they're one and the same.
Yeah. If I wasn't trying my best, I wouldn't have turned any homework in.
Right. Like this is my ceiling.
Yeah. But it was my birthday yesterday, and
happy birthday.
My birthday to myself wasn't a creepypasta. I didn't phone it in that hard, but I definitely did a one source topic.
I was hoping you just like found some notes you didn't delete from prior, and you're like, I'm just redoing a show.
That would be more work than finding new shit. Honestly, I'm afraid to go back into our archive of notes that I have on my computer, because that's 230 some folders I would have to look through. But no, everything I got today is from a website called historycollection.com, who apparently just make top 10 lists of history things.
Yeah.
And sort of harken back to what you were talking about, like, I'd say you and me both put a heavy emphasis on honor, right?
In our daily lives, because that's not true at all.
If somebody insults us, we demand satisfaction in blood.
Oh, yeah. I thought you meant being honorable, because I'm terrible at that.
No, we challenge people to a duel, and we kick them in the nuts as hard as they can, as hard as
when
we
they're
can,
not looking,
when they're about to walk their 10 paces.
Yeah. They turn around, and you do one of those where you hook your foot through, from behind.
I shoot them in the back of the head with my flintlock.
They're dead. They can't complain.
Like, I know personally.
They should have known better when we said, okay, terms are you pick the weapon, I pick that there's no witnesses.
No seconds. I know when I'm eating my 5th chili dog of the day, if you don't choose your words carefully, we're going to throw down, because I have pride. Today I just want to talk about some noteworthy duels from history. Bit of a variety episode today. And starting out, we have the duel between Francois Fournier Sarlevez versus Pierre Dupont de la Tongue.
The argument started when they said, I've got the dumbest name. No, I've got the dumbest name.
I have the fluffiest French sounds. And have you seen Ridley Scott's The Duelists with Harvey Keitel?
No, I have not. No.
I highly recommend it. even though I'm about to spoil the entire plot right now.
Well, in fairness, it sounds like that means that the movie's based on real life, so...
It's a dramatic version of kind of this weird feud that existed.
The French Hamilton, then, basically.
Yeah. And the movie came out in, like, 1977, so it's... at a certain point, there's a statute of limitations on spoilers.
Yeah.
But what I like about the movie is that it's a story of two people, like, fighting, but the fights are not, like, glamorized Hollywood sword fights. It's, like, trying to realistically depict the, like, like, sort of fucked up hesitancy of a real duel, where everybody looks uncomfortable. Even if, like, you're skilled at sword fighting, you don't look comfortable. Francois, Fournier, and Pierre Dupont were French officers during the Napoleonic Wars. Fournier had a reputation as a keen duelist, even though Napoleon technically banned the practice because it's actually pretty bad to have your army shooting themselves.
Right. It's like, save that for the battlefield, jackasses.
Yeah. Fournier was also a bit of a piece of shit, so nobody really liked him. He had a, just shitty attitude and wanted to fight all the time. It was this piece of shittery that crossed his path with Pierre Dupont, who was asked to deliver a message to Fournier that he was under house arrest for a duel he had partaken in earlier that very day, and was not allowed to attend some big fucking party that all the muckety-mucks of the French army would be attending. Yeah, basically it was like you stay put because you try to fight everyone. In a case of, I know what I'll do, I'll kill the messenger. Fournier felt his honor was insulted by Dupont delivering these messages, and challenged him to a rapier duel. However, Dupont was actually no slouch at dueling himself and wounded Fournier in the fight. I guess it was just a thing among French military elites that duels to the death would be called off in the event of an ouchie boo-boo. Because they stopped the duel there. But Fournier's honor was not satisfied by this result because you lost. He
lost, yeah.
And he would call upon Dupont again to settle the matter, and would call upon him a lot. This started an absurd cycle where the two men fought in 30 total duels in 19 years, between 1794 and 1813.
So it became like their Thanksgiving tradition? Like, you have turkey and then you just fight?
Yeah, like, it was this fucked up, like, bromance. The second fight ended with Dupont getting wounded. The third both got so fucked up and hurt that people had to step in. After this, they drew up a contract, essentially declaring a, like, private war on each other. The rules were, 1, they would meet sword in hand whenever they were within 100 miles of each other. 2, if one could not travel due to the demands of their military obligations, the other must come to meet him. 3, there were no excuses for not abiding by these terms.
Okay, so when exactly was this? You said during, like, the French Revolution?
The Napoleonic War, so 1794 to 1813.
So 100 fucking miles. So even if you meet halfway, traveling 50 miles in the early 1800s, that wasn't like today. If you ask me to drive 50 miles, I'm like, I'm probably not fucking doing that. And I got a car.
Yeah.
Like, and highways. I think I would have narrowed my contract down to like, look, if we're in the same town, maybe, and I don't have plans, then I'll fight you. Like, yeah.
It's weird, like, thinking about it now. It almost feels like a Brokeback Mountain situation. Because it's like, if whenever we're close, we go fishing.
How come every time they fight, they end up sucking on each other's rapiers?
But it's like, these guys have to kill each other to show their love, which is how guys do it. Well,
sure, yeah.
That's, fair point. sword in hand was just a turn of phrase, though. They didn't actually use swords every time because that would have gotten boring. So you branch out. So they did duels on horseback. They fought with pistols and lances. How the fuck you fight somebody 30 times and not manage to kill each other? Like you pointed out, there's a chance that they kind of liked each other.
Yeah.
Or at least like the spirit of competition. Because they had this fucked up friendship. It's almost like how guys today might only bond if they're in a boxing ring punching each other without headgear. It's just like the only way we can show appreciation is a concussion.
And you could kill them, but you intentionally just almost kill them.
Right. Supposedly they would often eat together before their battles. So they were battle bros.
I've heard of that with other duels, and maybe we'll see that with some of your other stories. I know you have more than one. But I've heard that before, where they're like... in fact, I think we covered a outlaw, like an Old West outlaw that got killed by like the posse or vice versa, but they had dinner together first.
Yeah, it's being very cordial. So they did this for a long time, but in 1813, Dupont had enough. Nearly 20 years of his life is, that's a long time for anything.
But imagine the long-term health implications of like these injuries.
Just getting fucked up, yeah.
Yeah.
And, it's a long time for something enjoyable, let alone potential death anytime some asshole happens to be 100 miles from you. So during another duel, Dupont got the upper hand and told Fournier that, cool football shit happened. It's going to be really hard to focus now that halftime's over.
Yeah.
So Dupont had cool football shit happen. No. So he beat Fournier in a duel, and in this moment, he declared hey, I want this shit to be over. Here are the final terms. He told Fournier he was engaged, he was about to be married. He didn't want his wife fucking worrying that he was going to die anytime he met Fournier. Therefore, they would settle this with a final duel in some nearby woods with pistols. So they each carried into the woods a pistol with one shot and had to hunt each other, essentially. Dupont...
so it wasn't even like a pace-off. It was like a paintball match.
They've already done that, so now it's time to hunt. Dupont managed to trick Fournier into firing his pistol into some clothing and then advanced on his rival with his pistol loaded. Fournier conceded defeat, and the two parted ways for good. So one of the few times, and oddly enough, it was the one that you probably expected blood the most, it ended with both guys living.
Especially man, that takes some, if the guy shot at your clothes trap, like your scarecrow, is what I'm picturing, basically, that tells you that he would have killed you.
Yeah.
And then for you to be like, hey, haha, but you didn't, so,
yeah.
But I'll let you live. I'd be fucker, you tried to kill me.
I think Fournier, and again, the way they tell that moment in The Duelists, I think is really well spoken. I like the line delivery of it from his name wasn't actually Dupont in the movie, I don't believe, but the character it's based off of kind of basically says, I've been, playing by your terms of honor for, 20 fucking years, and now you're going to submit to my terms. And I think in his terms, he didn't really want to kill Fournier. And I think in some ways he kind of liked him. He just wanted it to be over. He just didn't want to die.
Yeah, and it sounds, I don't know. I'm going to Hollywoodize this too. It's Fournier, I could see from the beginning, he's I can't be shown up in this duel by this fucking delivery boy, messenger.
Yeah.
And then I would imagine after 20 years of this back and forth, he wouldn't necessarily still have that feeling of I'm embarrassed for losing to this guy. Be like, this guy was a worthy opponent, so like whatever.
Yeah,
but,
I think he just didn't have that bone in him to, squash the beef.
Yeah.
Like...
it sounds like between the two, Fournier doesn't sound like he would have ever been the bigger man in any situation ever in his life. But sounds apparently
but Dupont
if he walked
wasn't
away
much better, like Dupont's more the stubborn, like, I didn't do anything wrong. Fuck you.
Right.
Which, that's kind of me and my brother arguing.
Yeah.
Again, highly recommend that movie. I think it's $5 to own on Voodoo right now too. So, because I just bought it thinking about this topic.
I've heard of it. Did they do like a remake or something?
Not that I know of. There's probably a lot of movies called The Duelists, but this one's by Ridley Scott, and it has Harvey Keitel in it.
And it was from the 70s?
It's like 77, I believe.
I was going to say I didn't realize he's been making movies that long, but I'm just really fucking old.
Well, yeah.
And I keep forgetting.
It's a very odd scene when the alien shows up, but weird artistic choice for,
I'm very bad at like who directed and did what, but was Ridley Blade Runner as well, the original Blade Runner?
I don't know. I just saw the original Blade Runner a few months ago. You'd think I'd remember, but it's really good.
The remake, it was all right. Like I didn't hate it. Like
I haven't watched it yet, but I'm willing to.
It's one of those like people. Everybody's like, it's not as good as the original. It's like, well, no shit, because the original is good. Plus, it has
the original has been good for decades.
And then you add nostalgia to it. I was right. He produced. It's that's uncredited though, but he had something to do with.
Ridley Scott.
I'm always proud of myself when I get a Hollywood thing right, because I don't fucking know shit about who does what in Hollywood, but.
All right, so next up we have Humphrey Howarth versus the Earl of Barrymore. The Earl of Drew Barrymore. No. It was the Brighton races of 1806, and two members of Parliament are going at it. Humphrey Howarth was...
Arguing or having sex? Like, there's that phrase goes both ways.
1800s, probably both.
Both.
Humphrey Howarth was kind of an elderly, portly dude. The Earl of Barrymore, it doesn't say much about him as a description, just says he was Irish.
Well, that's all you need to say. That paints a picture.
So, I mean, it's an Irish-English drunk-off. And the Earl blackened the elderly Howard's eyes during a card game. Wars have certainly been started for less, and pistols on the racetrack in the early morning was called for once both men sobered up, which I'd probably prefer to die pissed drunk myself, not hungover and regretting my drunken fixation on honor.
When you say he blackened the eye, you mean like Bruce, like he punched the guy,
socked
or
him,
is that like a... Okay, I didn't know if that was some weird-ass English phrase, like,
bopped
you blackened my eyes, sir.
Yeah, that's why when you spit in someone's eye. No, he hit him. Howarth showed up to the duel and immediately started taking off all his clothes, which is pretty high up there for warning signs not to fuck with somebody, because they have a goddamn animal in them.
Yeah. Although I feel like it gives you the other person the advantage, because now you don't have you're not going to get a shot that you think you're shooting the torso, but you really got their baggy shirt. Like, not that you can aim that well in a duel. You just tend to point and squeeze, but you're wrong,
but it's funny why you're wrong, because I didn't think about this until I read the story either. Because besides making himself look just fucking unhinged, Howarth had a pretty good logic for this. Because before he was a politician, Howarth was a surgeon and learned, probably before a lot of people back then, that gunshot fatalities weren't often caused by the bullets themselves, but by infection. because the bullets didn't penetrate that far back then. So it was often infections that came from embedded shreds of dirty clothes.
Well, I mean, then I would assume washing your clothes would have also...
Nobody washed shit in the 1800s. Are you mad?
I know. It had to smell terrible back then.
It was awful. So the crowd in Barrymore just watched this old fat guy strip down to nothing and line up with a pistol. And Barrymore, not wanting to be the one who killed the naked old dude, and definitely not wanting to be the one who died, he backed down and the matter was considered settled. I like to believe Howarth never put his clothes back on after that, though. He just walked off, dong swinging into the sunset. Or the sunrise, I guess.
This has proven an excellent...
Yeah.
Whatever. Debate tactic. He carried it into Parliament.
Again, my big bulbous cock wins the day. Next up, we have Lady Almeria Braddock versus Mrs. Elphinstone.
All right. Chick fight.
Hell yeah, bro. 1792, England.
Did they have pools of Jello back then? Is that where this is going?
Yeah, it was threw Jello at each other. Which wouldn't arouse me. It would just be like, that's a waste of Jello.
And that was my joke is going there, but I have always thought that whole thing, the like mud wrestling, Jello wrestling, like that's weird. Like that doesn't really do much for me. I mean, I'm not gonna, whatever, to each their own. But
I'm not looking for it. But I'm probably, let's be honest, I'm not looking away either.
Well, yeah, that's true. If it like a Jello wrestling match broke out at a bar you were at, you wouldn't stop looking, I guess.
Yeah,
but
I just.
But I'm also just not going for Jello wrestling night. Like, that's not like a event that I see on the events calendar.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know if it would arouse, but I would. Yeah, I would be fascinated. I would be calling it like MMA.
Yeah,
she's got her in a mud hook. So Mrs. Elphinstone was an upper-class woman visiting the home of Lady Almeria Braddock for tea. In typical 1792 snooty dipshit tone, she dropped a comment about Braddock's appearance. "You have been a very beautiful woman. You have a very good autumnal face, even now. But you must acknowledge that the lilies and roses are somewhat faded. 40 years ago, I am told, a young fellow could hardly gaze upon you with impunity." Basically saying, thanks for the tea, I hope you can accept you're a crusty old bitch now. Braddock had only turned 30, so super rude. And she was furious about this insult.
In fairness, that's a fairly rude thing to say, even if a woman just turned like 90. I heard you were hot once, but you're fucking...
It's super rude, but you're not being like, accept your age. It's like, you're just being an asshole.
Yeah.
And so Braddock demanded a duel. This was known as the Petticoat Duel and was fought in London's Hyde Park. The two drew pistols initially, and Elphinstone shot Braddock's hat off. Again, just randomly deciding, well, that's enough of that. They switched to swords. And
Brad didn't call the duel like, good show, you got my hat.
Maybe they only had
guns are kind of dangerous.
Maybe they only had one shot. Like maybe Braddock missed and Elphinstone went for the head, but only got the hat. So they pull.
Oh fuck! We should have brought more than one bullet.
They draw their swords, but then you have to watch those assholes reload those old timey pistols. Who wants that?
I guess it's less about having access. It's more like, look, if we take another shot, we're going to be here for another 3 hours. Let's just pull the swords out.
Yeah,
like, that's.
So they switched the swords. Braddock struck Elphinstone on the arm, realizing that was actual fucking blood coming out of her arm, and being a rude bitch was probably not worth dying over. She fled home and wrote Braddock a lengthy apology letter.
So, yeah. So that brings us back to last week with the killer that murdered somebody and then fainted. Wait, they died and there's blood. Woo!
Yeah.
It's well, you're right.
What did you think would happen? So unfortunately, got to pull back the curtain on this one a little bit. There's not a lot of evidence to support it really happened. The only thing kind of solid is the names of the people, but there's nothing to really indicate that they actually had this duel or even the insult
I don't
happened.
know.
But I like the story. So
yeah, you find, what was the name of the woman that got cut? Which one was it?
that was Elphinstone.
So I'm going to just like live the rest of my life telling myself that that it's real, and that Elphinstone's tombstone says, "Here lies 90% of Lady Elphinstone." Like that, she didn't just cut the arm; she cut the arm off.
Yeah, put on her tombstone that she must realize the lilies and roses are somewhat faded.
So they can also be pruned, bitch.
Yeah.
That's what I hope she said right
You've
before
been
she
pruned,
slashed her.
bitch.
Yeah. Every good duelist has to have a good line, like a.
Yeah.
Although I do like the Detective Crashmore route, where she's like, "Are you fucking dumb?
Are you dumb?
You fucking suck.
Eat bullets, you fuckers. You fucking suck."
Fucking suck." God, I love that skit. That
I love
that one
Crashmore.
grows on me the more and more. I haven't even rewatched it really, maybe once or twice.
Well,
but
we
it's
said
more
it like a couple.
as it lives in my head, it gets better and better.
Well, we said it. I don't remember if it was last week or a couple weeks ago, but on the show, it's just that line. Everything has sucked lately.
Yeah, I don't even care if I die.
Yeah.
Everything has sucked lately.
And it's like, God, I feel that so hard. Like, it's a really funny line, but I shouldn't relate to it like I do.
Yeah, and again, I'll point out I'm not suicidal. I do care if I die,
I'm
but
just
it's just
super, like-
but at the brink of it. Like
I'm just super neutral at the end of the day. Like
Yeah, and then just that whole delivery I identify
the fact that that death could be imminent proves my point that everything has sucked lately. You know?
You know what? Now this is going way off topic. We're turning into I think you should leave Fancast, but
which we are.
I just decided that in my head, Detective Crashmore and Shirt Brother is the same universe, and that's actually what set Detective Crashmore off, was that situation at the school.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, so next up to wrap up, is the duel between two men named Melfant and Lenfant. France, once again, leading the way in minor squabbles turning to bloodshed.
They are, in fairness, very well known historically for this kind of attitude.
Yeah, honor is very important, and so are stupid fights.
Yeah, it's honor. I don't know. Like you could say honor is very important. I feel like in France, historically, and from what I hear to this day, it's not even really honor. That's just an excuse they use. They just like to be petty and then fight.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. But it's very funny coming from them in this time, because it was like during ideas of like civil lethal combat. You know, it's like we have to have rules. Like nowadays,
gentlewomanly murder.
Somebody will just break a glass mug over your head if they got a real problem with you. So it's 18.
Yeah, I've had like twice in my life where drunk guys at bars like will randomly come up and win a fight, and it's because I'm not a big guy, so I think they pick out. They're like, I could win this fight, and in fairness, they're probably right. Although, I've talked about before, I am way overconfident in my abilities to hold my own. But I also do everything in my power to avoid fighting.
That's true.
But yeah, people do that. They're like, I'm looking for fights. Let's go.
Yeah. So it's 1843, and two men named Melfant and Lenfant got into a heated match of billiards. If you've ever played pool at a bar, you know this is not unusual temperaments. Both men agree.
And again, it's weird. That's like the weirdest thing to me to get upset over, because it's fucking...
Yeah. That's true, but like I've also met a lot of like pool players and stuff, and they're kind of...
Right, but again, it's weird to me to be that into pool.
Yeah,
like,
it's weird.
Pool is a thing that...
It's weird that like really like aggressive kind of shitty people might be drawn to a drunken game of geometry.
Yeah.
You know? So both men agreed that their honor must be reclaimed in the spirit of what caused their dispute in the first place. So they stood 12 paces apart in a garden and would throw billiard balls at each other.
Yes.
But not like a snowball fight, like a turn-based RPG. So they drew lots to decide who would throw first. Melfant won and warned Lenfant that he would drop him with the first throw, which is not so much of a warning, but a statement of high probability.
Well, yeah, I mean...
Sure as shit, Melfant lobbed a red ball right into Lenfant's forehead and killed him instantly.
That'll do it.
Melfant was quickly arrested and taken to prison. He was tried for murder, but was only convicted of manslaughter. I guess because this is one of those, everyone involved was very stupid.
Well, yeah, the other guy was willingly participating.
Yeah.
I'm not saying let him off, because no, you killed a guy. And also, you're going to be extremely popular in prison when they find out you're in for... your ball beat a guy to death in the forehead. Then people are like, huh. Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. So that's it.
I was really hoping that you were going to say they stood at like 12 paces, but they had the pool cues and were trying to reach, like, just poking each other with the pool sticks. But the billiard ball toss, that's pretty good. It's poetic.
Yeah. I would encourage, when we cite the sources on the episode descriptions, there's 6 other stories on there that are pretty interesting. Not all of them are very necessarily funny, but they're interesting. So go give it a look, and yeah, do that. Yeah, fuck yeah. Go read something, you idiot. No. That's all I got. How do you feel now about duels? You more into them or less?
I think I'm about the same as I was coming into it.
So if
I think they're fucking awesome.
So if I mail you a flintlock pistol, you'll meet me halfway between Ohio and Washington.
Only if we ever happen to be within 100 miles. I had a question about that I didn't bring up during that segment. It's, again, late 1700s, early 1800s. How the fuck do you even know if you're within 100 miles of somebody?
So in the movie, at least, maybe there were different ways. Like maybe they wrote each other to be like, hey, where you at? But in the movie, they actually, like, Fournier actually sends his, like, scout to, like, monitor Dupont and, like, where
that's
he's
the
at.
part, and that's where I wouldn't let you live after a duel, because I'd be mildly annoyed that you keep wanting to fight me. I'd be extremely annoyed that you're spying on me.
Yeah, and it's totally like that. He's, like, hanging outside their window and shit. And be like, hey, dude still wants to fight.
You offend my honor, Scout. Now I've got 2 duels to fight.
Yeah.
That's what the real duelist should be, is a guy like Fournier, but who ends up with like this like gentlemanly war pact, but among like 40 different people. Like he has to hire a whole company to keep track of who is where and what they're fighting and what their status currently is. Like,
yeah. There's a lot of interesting things. I don't know how much of it is tied to the true story and how much is just, dictated in the movie. But, Dupont was trying to find ways out of the duels, and ways you could do that would be like one of their rules, like we talked about, was like if you had military obligations, those always came first. But also if like if you were a higher rank than the guy trying to duel you, then it was seen as like, a fucking taboo. Like you could not, as even though they were not allowed in general, it was like you were definitely not allowed to challenge your commanding officer to a duel. So the Dupont character is like trying to rise the ranks, so he can not have to fight Fournier anymore.
And Fournier keeps rising with him. It's like, fucking A.
I don't know if he rose with him or just did not give a shit, but...
Wouldn't it be, if that was one of your rules, wouldn't it have been easier to drop in rank? Like...
I think, by that point, then Fournier would be like, I'll drop in rank too. I've already dropped in rank. I keep fighting and getting in trouble. Your best bet is to become a colonel.
I'd be like, I'm getting tired of fighting in France. Meet me in Egypt, but don't actually go to Egypt. Just like send the fucker on a...
That's a fun thing about the movie. They go to a lot of fucking places. Not Egypt, obviously, because it's still got to be the Napoleonic Wars, but... it's interesting to watch these guys try to hash out their squabble in a lot of situations.
I've been looking for inspiration to write like a book or a movie myself, and I think I'm going to just steal this story but put it in present day. And like, so they're just like meeting in like subways and like not the subway station, but like the sandwich shop.
Where most fighting goes down in 2023.
Well, we're here. We got to keep it in theme. I challenge you to 12-inch footlongs at dawn.
That's about all that bread is good for.
Yeah. That would be the duel that leads to the death of one of them. And they're like, well, damn.
Yeah. All right.
Anyway.
That's enough of that. I'm going to watch my team drive me insane. So...
All right, well, we'll be back next week, and if you don't show up, we'll fucking duel you.
Yeah, because there's honor afoot.
I mean, I won't duel you. I'll hire somebody to duel you on my behalf, which also happened a lot back in the day. Yeah. But anyway,
go get your honor. Bye-bye.